I'm Lou Jost from the Fundación EcoMinga, and we work in Ecuador. I'm the treasurer and one of the founders. That was the critical thing for us, was to get connected to the World Land Trust, because we had big projects in mind, and there were few people who would take the chance on a new foundation. But we had connections to some of the other partners in the World Land Trust group, and so we were able to get your support, and that was critical. It let us buy huge areas, that it let us do what we wanted to do, and it gave us resources beyond just buying land. It let us have a management budget, which was critical for what we did. I was an orchid scientist, and one of my goals was to discover new species of orchids and map where they occurred in our region, try to understand their biogeography. And so as I was doing that, I started discovering lots of new species, and a lot of them were clustered in particular places. So, and those places were outside national parks. They weren't protected. The remoteness protected them for now, but eventually the agricultural frontier would catch up with them. So with that in mind, I got together with friends, and we formed the EcoMinga Foundation to protect those special places that I had discovered. So the orchids were the start of the whole thing. But it's turned out that now in the same places as there are new orchids, there are also new frogs and new lizards and even some new trees. At the tops of some of the highest mountains in my area, I discovered in about 2000, the year 2000, I was high up on a mountain that had never been visited by scientists. And in 1 square meter of moss, when I started looking around, I found 4 new species of this odd genus that I couldn't even identify at the time. It was called Tegia, but I didn't know that then. It wasn't one of the orchids I was familiar with. I thought, I must have never bought the book that had these in them. And I was eager to get back down to see what they were, because it seemed like an interesting genus. There were 4 different ones, 4 completely different kinds of flowers in the same genus. And the plants were the same, but the flowers were different. When I got down, I discovered that, in fact, this was a new subgroup, a new subgenus that had never been described before. And then I started finding many more of these on different mountains, and it turned out to be this local evolutionary radiation that completely unexpected, kind of like the Galapagos. Lots and lots of different species on each mountain, and very few species shared between mountains. So altogether, there were about 30 of these new species on the tops of our mountains, something unprecedented in Latin America. Continuity in the face of increasing pressures, there'll always, in the future, there's not going to be many forests left outside of protected areas. We know that. People are cutting. People need land for agriculture. The challenge is, how do we maintain our reserves in the face of that kind of pressure? And the only way to do it is to relate the reserves to the people who live around the reserves and make our reserves a resource for the people. And Baños is a good place to do that, where we're working, because Baños lives on ecotourism. It's a standard tourist destination in Ecuador. So we have we're sort of pre-adapted to tourism. There's a lot of tourism know-how and infrastructure in the town, and the people have seen that ecotourism works, so they don't need to be convinced that protecting a forest can be beneficial to their livelihoods.